Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Star Trek Picard Episode 6 Thoughts video. I just finished watching the latest episode of Star Trek Picard, and I'm just going to be sharing my general thoughts on this latest episode. In this episode, we see Picard dealing with this kind of PTSD-like emotions related to his time with the Borg because they're heading to the artifact, aka the captured Borg cube or the abandoned Borg cube. And so this episode was really interesting for that, and the balance of, we spent a lot of it also with Soji, who's on the Borg cube, who they're going to go, and her kind of starting to put some of the pieces together about how her life isn't quite what it seems. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this episode, particularly because it didn't have that much action, which is something that I tend to like, want a little bit more of in my science fiction. But Star Trek is one of those ones that I'm just happy when we get some really kind of cool, well, not cool, but interesting kind of themes or subjects we dive into. In this one, we had a big kind of big focus around Picard and his kind of feelings, and like I said, this kind of PTSD type feelings relating to the Borg and his time having been assimilated, and how we see that it's he's very triggered by his having to go to the Borg cube in order to find Soji. And so he even says he's not excited about this at all, and we see a very kind of emotional reaction he has when speaking about the Borg at first. So yeah, I really enjoyed kind of diving into that side of Picard, because like I said, I've mentioned this in a couple of the other videos I've done for the episodes, which is, it's one of those things that I do always remember, but it's one of those things that's kind of always at the back of my head when I think of Picard. I'm always thinking about how that would affect him, and I like that we're diving into this, because sometimes, especially with science fiction shows, you don't always dive into like the effects of some of the stuff that these guys go through. Yes, sometimes they do, but I really like that we're kind of diving into the kind of the emotional side of how Picard is kind of dealing with the fact that he was assimilated by the Borg some 15-20 years after it happened. So I really enjoyed that element of this episode, of exploring into that, and like then having him, once he makes it to the cube, having to kind of accept it, or not accept it, but kind of change his perspective on it a little bit. And I like, there's one line he says, which is that the Borg aren't like, kind of after he spent some time with Hugh, who is also a former Borg, who's the head. We've already met him in this season. He's the head of the Reclamation Project, and so after spending some time with him and getting this perspective, he says that like we see what the Borg really are underneath, which is victims, not monsters, which I really enjoyed to kind of see that kind of character development in this one, seeing how we start off with him being just really emotional and kind of angry towards the Borg, which is understandable for what they did to him, but then through this throughout this episode and his time on the Borg cube and with Hugh, and learning about the Reclamation Project and kind of being able to change his perspective. And I just really enjoyed that. It was just a really kind of great character development moment throughout this episode. So I really enjoyed that, and just seeing that he kind of was able to kind of, I don't know, it does seem a little more Picard, I guess, or to be more accepting. He's an accepting guy, and it's always been an interesting thing that the Borg are the ones that he in particular is like, no, and then it's understandable, but I like that in this episode he's able to kind of start to seeing the fact that particularly former Borg are just victims of the fact that they were assimilated just like he was. And so yeah, I just really enjoyed that whole element of this episode. And then the other half, the exploring into Soji and her, we even start this episode off with another flashback. I'm pretty sure every episode started with a small flashback as the first thing. Yeah, we see a little flashback of her, which was actually a dream that she has, and it ends up leading into her diving into that throughout this one, led on by Norik, who obviously is trying to get the information from her about her home planet, and again throughout this episode successfully does it. And I thought they did a really I don't know the best way to put it, but they did a good job with the way they kind of set it up, I felt, in this episode, where he kind of takes advantage of this situation where her, she does have these dreams, these recurring dreams, and he notices that, and he even proves his sister wrong about it. I think that's her sister. I'm still going to call her the one lady, Norik's sister. I'm pretty sure. Anyways, that's not the important part. But yes, I like that we kind of dove into her kind of finally figuring it out, scanning all her different possessions to be like, these are only 37 months old. She's only all her stuff's only 3 years old. And it's just starting to put the pieces together, led on by Norik. And then immediately kind of getting backstabbed by him, which was an interesting part. I wasn't sure which way they were going to go with his character. I was like, is he gonna, do the kind of classic, bad guy turns good for the girl, or is he gonna stick with his principles or what, his original mission? And he ends up sticking with his original mission, even though obviously he seems pretty torn up about it. But then he doesn't actually succeed. He tries to kill her after learning about where she was created, or her home planet, and so then he tries to kill her with some radiation, but that activates her and she smashes through the floor and escapes, and then runs immediately. And then that's when her and Picard meet up, and she immediately is able to I like that Picard's approach with this one, which is just he's not trying to force her into this. He's just please let me help you. I want to. He did a really great job of in a few seconds communicating why he was there and what he was why he was going to be able to help her. I like that. Some shows are really bad with there's a little miscommunication and that causes problems. I like that he was immediately able to get on board with her. They were able to figure a way off the ship, and so that was pretty much all. And then we see this episode kind of ends off with them escaping, but also having to leave Elnor behind. Well, Picard didn't want to leave him behind. The kid came and helped save them, but then he stayed behind to keep them from following. That's the part that I was a little why? How would they follow you? You mean that's the part I was like, you guys, Hugh just turned it off right away. He did say it would take a couple minutes, so I guess that makes sense. But yeah, so we end this episode off kind of them finally, with Picard finally having, I don't want to say rescued, but finally been able to find Soji, and they're going to probably go figure out, why she was created, why she was given these false memories and all that stuff. So I'm really excited going forward to kind of explore the rest of these mysteries that we've have been slowly diving into for the first part of this season, but we're going to probably ramp up for this last little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts on this latest episode of Star Trek Picard. Sure, let me know in the comments below what you thought about this episode. Thanks again for joining me today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.